right. Hey out there. Welcome to the Geek Branch Podcast. I'm your host today. I am Dane, and these are my co-hosts Tim and Alex, and we are going into the depths of this order. And in the depths, we're diving to find a little bit of a strange subject today. We're going to be talking about My Hero Academia. And most people are thinking that we're going to be talking about that amazing last episode just recently aired. Is that the series finale for this season, or is there another episode?
There's still plenty of episodes.
Yeah, I was going to say they're going to continue into a second core, I believe.
Wow, man, they're just going directly into it, huh?
Yep.
That seems like that should have been a season finale. But okay, regardless.
Well, they haven't finished it out
It was
yet,
an arc
really.
finale.
Arc finale? I guess you could say it's an arc
Tomorrow,
finale.
the next episode should be wrap up.
Yeah,
Cool.
Next up would be wrap up.
But yeah, so if you haven't guessed by that little conversation there, I'm not actually a watcher of My Hero Academia.
Which is why this is so weird.
Yeah,
I did
he's
not
the one hosting this topic.
I did not believe him when he said this was his topic.
Now, that's not to say that I don't have anything familiar with it, actually. What I have done is I have read the manga up to right here. And I have not continued on from there. Not to say that I am not actually a fan. I actually look upon My Hero Academia actually quite highly. It just wasn't in my circuit house anymore as far as reading material. So, regardless, if you haven't seen that latest episode, go watch it because they really outdid themselves. One of the things I love doing for My Hero Academia is coming from the manga to the anime just to watch the animations for fights. Because
they got a great studio.
They're all banging it out like it's 10 out of 10.
I'll say some of these fights this season haven't been the greatest compared to the manga, but this one was definitely up there in par.
I really liked Lemillion's fight.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically come in for fights that I loved in the manga. So like Best Jadess getting absolutely destroyed, Deku versus Bakugo, basically the tournament arc, and coming in for the fight with One for All versus All Might, and of course this fight here, Chisaki versus Deku.
So what is your actual topic?
Yes, the actual topic is why I find that My Hero Academia needed to find a better way of matching up its heroes with its villains on an ideological level. And so that's a really big genre title, but what I mean specifically is that my favorite parts about animes like My Hero Academia, and the reason why I rate it so highly, is because when two people start a fight, unlike, we'll say, in Dragon Ball Z, I rather have them fighting over an idea and fighting to make that idea come to fruition rather than them just beating the crap out of each other because they're both strong and they want to know who's stronger. And I mean, that's the thing that happens in shonen sometimes, where you just get, tournament arcs, where the whole point of it is, I'm stronger, I'm here to fight, I'm here to win.
Tournament arcs or power levels.
Yeah, right. So it's just there to beat face. But My Hero Academia is really unique because their first big fight is a perfect, literally pitch perfect example of how to write ideas fighting, not just characters. And it's kind of fallen off, and it's for that reason of falling off that I fell out with My Hero Academia from the love that I originally had for it. And so I wanted to bring a focus on this because we just got done watching a spectacular fight between Deku and Chisaki, but ideologically, these two characters don't mesh at all. They're like literally arrows flying across from each other. There's no...
Deku's sole purpose is just to save that girl.
Right.
Where Chisaki is trying
has an overarching goal and an ideology he's trying to bring to fruition.
Yeah.
And Deku standing in front of him doesn't care about it at all.
The reason they're fighting over the same thing, but for different reasons.
Right, but at that point, they're fighting over a MacGuffin. Well, even though the MacGuffin is absolutely adorable, but they're fighting over a MacGuffin.
She is essentially a MacGuffin of their world.
I'm not saying she isn't.
Right, but they're fighting over a MacGuffin as opposed to fighting because they disagree with each other as far as their ideas are concerned.
I wouldn't say MacGuffin's the right word, because I would say MacGuffin in the fact that, yes, what she's doing with Deku is,
she's a MacGuffin because she could get rid of all quirks with her quirk.
That's not necessarily MacGuffin. That's literally a...
I mean, the kid from X3 is the exact same thing. Is it X3?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know. MacGuffin doesn't sound like the right word.
MacGuffin normally refers to a magical item that everyone wants in the plot that serves some greater purpose, but actually isn't, like, there's no other way of describing it. The One Ring is a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
she is functionally the One Ring.
Okay.
The plot gets solved with her, either on the villain having her or the hero having
She
her.
can save them all, or she can get rid of them all.
So, I mean, not that I like to call characters MacGuffins, but she's basically a MacGuffin,
Fair enough.
regardless of the use of the terminology.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But
no, you were right to
question
question
it.
it. Yeah.
yeah, so
Absolutely.
here's my thing, right? So my favorite fight in My Hero Academia is actually the trio versus Stain. The trio.
Deku, Ida, and Todoroki.
Yes, because it didn't actually include Bakugo here.
That's probably why it was good.
Well, yes, but
We're not going to touch on that subject in the beginning, but
yeah. So,
Sorry, I'm
so-
not a big Bakugo fan.
I mean, he's Naruto. There's nothing really wrong with that. If you like Naruto, you should like him. He is functionally just Naruto.
I'm not a huge Naruto fan.
That's okay. But
I mean, I like the show. I'm not a fan of the protagonist. I like
Naruto.
some of the other people, like
In the
Rock
series.
Lee
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and
Well,
Shikamaru.
this is the problem with having an ensemble cast.
Yes.
But anywho, so what happens is that Stain idea, and the reason why Stain is who Stain is because he has a high concept of what a hero is, delivered to him by witnessing the acts and feeling the presence of All Might. The exact same thing Deku
Yes.
has.
strives for.
Yes,
Strives for.
right. So him and Stain match up ideologically. The difference there between the two of them is that they have taken measures to fulfill that ideology on making or being a perfect hero.
Two totally different ways.
They've chosen two different methods, and their conflict is over those methods.
Yes. Because one thinks that most of the other heroes aren't true heroes, so the answer to that is to kill them, because in his eyes they're really villains.
Well, yeah, he's not. They're not actually villains. He recognizes that they're trying to
They're
be heroes,
posers.
but because they're failing, he's calling the shaft.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm getting you people out of the industry because as long as you people persist, the image of All Might will eventually be ruined. The thing
Right.
that comes after All Might, which is what Stain, long before All Might ever revealed that All Might couldn't be All Might for all of eternity,
Yeah.
that he wouldn't be a hero for another 2 decades.
Right.
Long before that ever became a fact in the series, Stain was already moving forward in concern about All Might's successor.
Right.
Yes, because he knew that would happen.
Right. And Deku, of course, at this point is doing the exact same thing because he is
All
All
Might's
Might's successor.
Right.
So like on this metatextual level above the actual visual conflict that you're seeing, there are two big ideas clashing, and that's the thing that enraptured me with My Hero Academia.
Which is interesting because they have the same ideal, and by the end of it, honestly, Stain actually acknowledges Deku as
Being
the,
correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the one true, the true person who's trying to keep with All Might's ideals.
Yes.
Right. And Stain is brought to justice not because he lost the fight, which he did do, because he was really outmatched. Stain had no chance, honestly, against any of them.
Well, that's not true. He could have beaten any of them one-on-one. It's the fact
Because
that
of
they all
their
work.
experience.
But follow me here is what I mean. That's the reason why they couldn't win. If you take any of them from one arc forward and bring them back to fight Stain,
Oh,
all
yeah.
of them beat him.
Oh, absolutely.
His quirk is minimalistic to the extreme.
Yeah,
It's-
because pretty much all the kids, like their power level goes up a lot.
And
from
it's
one
also
arc.
his quirk is very, very bad in multi-person fights. In a single-person fight, he's
Well, he's an
he-
assassin class quark.
Yeah,
essentially.
and he has a chance to win. But the thing that made Stain capable of actually taking out any of them is fear.
yeah.
And
No,
if they weren't afraid of Stain, all of them at that point have enough power to beat him.
yeah.
Like realistically, Ida is way too fast for him to deal with. He is faster than Stain. Todoroki never has to get anywhere near him,
Yeah.
and Deku's a one-hitter quitter. If Deku lands a hit, Stain's out of the fight.
Right.
So like none of them match up with him as a fighting goes, period. The fight's interesting because Stain has the ability to terrify them. And Stain terrifies Endeavor. at the end of that arc.
Yeah,
So
no,
Which says a lot. Yeah.
He's literally got that pressure. What's it called? Almost
Hockey,
like, the King's hockey or whatever from One Piece.
From One Piece, yeah.
right. And if it wasn't for that intimidation, Stain loses almost instantly to everyone he comes
Well,
up
it's because
against.
he's so strong in his idea.
Right, and
That
that's
people can feel it.
because it was a fight of conviction.
Yeah.
Rather than a fight of actual strength, and I love that to death.
Because he wasn't a true villain, per se.
Well, no, he was killing.
I mean, he was killing people, but he wasn't doing it for self-gain, which is different from most what they see as villains.
He wasn't chaotic evil. I'd say he was just evil. Like, he was evil, but he was almost lawful evil, but in the lawful fact that he was following his own code.
Right. Lawful evil is a pretty good alignment for him.
Yeah, I would put him on that.
Right, because he's not following the law of the land, but he is following a code that has been set out.
Like a samurai code of his own.
Right. The evil is what he's willing to do to achieve that.
Right.
Which is murdering anyone that gets in his way. So,
He's the Punisher going a step further.
well, no, I mean, no one goes a step further than the Punisher. The Punisher is
The farthest step past the line.
go. There is no such thing as
Yeah, but Punisher is an anti-hero, whereas the other guy's a villain.
The best way to put it, Punisher is the furthest line for a chaotic good character. He's willing to go as far as possible.
No. You're fine. You could literally call Punisher evil. Let's roll back here for just a second because we're gonna go off on the tangent here. But I'm just gonna go real quick here. There is no difference between Stain and Punisher besides their code.
Right.
And Punisher is willing to kill way more people than Stain is.
Yeah.
That's true.
So like, Punisher is the far end of the spectrum as far as like a lawful evil character goes. And I'm perfectly fine with calling Frank Castle evil because he functionally is. He will kill, torture, and maim for his purposes. What he's willing to do to achieve his goals falls strictly into evil. As long as you are in the bounds of a valid target,
He'll kill you.
Yeah, he'll kill you.
He will kidnap your child, set it in the middle of a park, and snipe you when you come to get it. Like, he won't hurt the kid in any way, but he's more than willing to go to any extreme to achieve his goal.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, proceeding from that, though, that's what really caught me and enraptured me into My Hero Academia, right? And so I continued to watch the series. I became a big fan of it, looking for the next great that moment. And we did get another one. We had to wait for it a little bit, but it's All Might versus One for All.
Right.
Right? Where there's a physical fight going on, but the actual fight is a fight of ideas. Can the symbol of peace and justice hold when confronted with the world watching him fight in this weakened capacity?
Right.
Right?
Which he did, and it was amazing.
And
well,
he did.
yeah, but he did, but
One for all still wins.
No, by the end of it, physically, All for One wins. Or
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All Might.
All Might wins. Mentally, though,
In the fight of the ideas, just like Deku
Yes.
won by beating out Stain ideologically, One for All beat out All Might ideology because
no, All for One beat.
Yeah, all for one, not one for all.
yeah.
I don't have a name for him. And
I
that's the
know,
problem.
right? I know, Big Bad. like, all right, because this is gonna happen multiple times as we talk about this. I'm just gonna call him Big Bad. So anyway, so Big Bad wins ideologically because despite All Might standing there and having won that actual fight, it doesn't change the fact that everyone who watched that fight despaired.
Because now they've lost their number one hero.
Right.
Well,
so,
they lost their symbol of peace more so.
and even though he's taken out the Big Bad, the greatest villain that has ever stepped foot on the face of this universe,
He's
as
their
far as-
Thanos.
Right. Even though the loss of him is worth more than defeating Big Bad,
Right.
and so we consider
To them, he's irreplaceable.
Well, and then so that's the societal fight, right? But they also have a sub fight, which is about succession, right?
Yeah.
And All Might is fighting to buy his successor more time, but Big Bad is fighting to make his successor his actual successor because his successor isn't locked in.
Not yet.
Man, Tim, I wish I could talk to you about the manga. There's a
sorry.
lot of stuff
But
going
we're
on
trying
right
to
now.
hold. We're really trying to hold back on it for the viewers.
I know,
too.
I know.
Because they're just pure. They're pure
most
anime
of our
watchers.
most of our viewers are pure anime watchers, but the manga is so good.
So
right now.
Big Bad's successor is the kid who has the heads.
Shigaraki Tomura.
name who's I'm not gonna even bother. Little Bad,
He calls him Hand Guy.
Hand Guy, and Little Bad. All right, so I'm gonna call him Little Bad because I'm calling Big Bad Big
Just
Bad.
call him Tomura.
No, Little Bad.
At least he has a name.
Little Bad. That's not actually his name.
Tomura is his name.
That is not actually his name.
Shigaraki Tomura?
Is not actually his name. Big Bad gave him that name.
Okay, but that's still the name that he's...
That's not actually his name.
Okay, but that's still his name that we go by within the anime.
Sure, that's great. Little Bad. Anyway.
I'm whatever. Anyway.
So, Little Bad is not locked in as Big Bad's successor. Because Little Bad is obviously kind of really just apathetic. He's not overly concerned. Like when you see him make the attack on UA, right? He isn't actually dedicated to completing that task. He's not fully behind it. He is just doing it because this is what he has been tasked with. He's not a villain for himself yet.
And after all this, he is.
Right, because seeing his mentor lose and seeing All Might come out at the top locks him in to that role. He actually just chooses to step away from any path from redemption. Because up until that point, outside of, knowing some details about him that you pick up in the manga and later on in the series, you don't know his motivations, you don't know why he's here, and you don't know if any of the villains can be, redeemed.
Yeah.
Right, but you see him visibly kind of lock himself in to this role here and now. This is who he's going to be. Is who he chooses to be. And that is a win for Big Bad. Because that's the thing Big Bad was most concerned with. Not actually defeating the symbol of peace, not actually taking out All Might, but having
securing
a successor.
The future. What he viewed as securing the future.
Right. That's the
he
thing.
thinks his successor will beat
All Might's
Deku
successor.
easily, in his opinion.
Right. Because, Big Bad, quite honestly, has beaten several generations of All Might.
Right. All Might was the first of...
Yeah, of that lineage to actually be the one to take him down is what, because he's been around for a very long time just by looking at his backstory, which I don't know if they cover in the anime.
They did.
Okay,
they did. Then they talk about
All Might specifically told Deku at some point. I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
about the full length of that guy's
the
career.
original creation of these quirks and how it all worked and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and he's essentially the emperor of the MHA universe, really, in my opinion.
What do you mean, Emperor?
Like Star Wars.
The Emperor.
Oh,
he's a
okay,
Palpatine.
okay.
Yeah, he's a Palpatine.
Which is true. He's a Shadow Master at this point, only because he's been beaten to that point.
Yep.
Because he physically can't keep up the role that he used to have, just like All Might can't physically keep up the role that he used to have. Anywho, regardless of those two things,
when we were discussing about it, he was talking about how he was let down with this recent fight because their ideas don't really match up with each other. But the person that did more closely was Lemillion. If Lemillion should have been the one that should have won the fight.
The problem is Lemillion also needed to lose his powers. That's the problem because there needed to be a sacrifice.
Spoiler.
We're talking about the fight.
Yeah.
There needed to be
we're already past that, by the way.
There needed to be a person that it was a big deal that they lost their powers, and Lemillion was that person, unfortunately, that lost his powers, much to everybody's dismay. Because that man is a true man.
Yeah,
Power.
But see, that's the thing that you're not really like. Okay, so it's fine that you see that from a plotting reason, but
They could have picked someone else. They could have picked
in fact,
Hawkeye.
No, there are two people that are actually really optimal choices. One being Deku himself.
But that couldn't work because he's the protag.
It does work because Deku's powers aren't natural. They're not a genetic trait of Deku.
But that it would still shut him off. That's the problem.
No. It's fine that it does. The point being is
come
that
back.
Deku's powers could come back.
Especially with that girl.
Well, I'm saying it's very easy to write a way for Deku's powers to come back.
Her ability too, she could bring it back.
Well, no. But more importantly, Deku's power isn't innate to himself. What she does is basically a full genetic rewrite. So she completely evolves you back to the point where your quirk never activates, right? But the activation of Deku's quirk is a physical anomaly. It's something that was ingested by Deku. And so how that transfers a full quirk is unknown to the audience, and only the author knows. So if we ever bring in that Deku eventually and slowly gets his power back, there's no reason that you can question it, because Deku's quirk is unique because it's given to him. So Deku is the perfect person to pick, but the person
I also feel like his quirk is above just genetics.
Well, that's my point. Is
It's
that
a supernatural, like,
something's really unique about how this is transferred, and we don't know how that works because there's more to it, obviously, than just getting the quirk. In the anime, have they done the voices of?
Nope. Stop.
Okay, I'm not spoiling it. I'm just checking. So cool.
That's why I'm telling you to stop.
I know. I'm just checking. I didn't say anything else.
You know that there was.
You immediately understood what I was talking about, so I just had to bring
even
it up.
as an anime watcher, you know that
There's a lot more to it, Tim. Stop
Yeah.
that line of train of thought right now.
there's a lot more to the quirk than we know.
Yes.
Right.
So let's stop talking about it.
Which is the point in that Deku could have lost his abilities. Regardless. And Deku could have continued just like Lemillion continued. He could continue the fight even without having his quirk because Deku spent all the time.
Is a true hero, just like Lemillion is.
Right. Another person who I would have liked to have seen eat that bullet and lose their abilities is Sun Eater.
No.
Listen, follow me up here, because it would mean that much more to Lemillion, like as far as a character dynamic is concerned. I'm not saying that
Sun Eater should. I'm not saying you're not wrong about, like, it would have been a great character motivator for Mirio, for Lemillion. I'm saying Sun Eater had such a big moment already. Like, doing that to him after he had such a big moment
It'd be
before,
too much at once.
Yeah,
I mean, that's fine. It's perfectly reasonable where you decide to choose it. I'm saying that would have been my personal choice. The person who I think is actually best, as you can slot this character in, is just swap Deku and Lemillion.
I disagree, but that's only because Deku is the Goku of the story, and we do need him.
Okay, but
Right,
but
but-
you're missing the point that I'm bringing up when talking about this. Deku has no ideological conflict with.
Sure, I agree with you.
That's why he thinks it would have been more impactful if Lemillion was the one to have defeated him.
Because
hold on. By that same argument, Lemillion is in the same shoes as Deku. Lemillion wants to save that girl.
Yes, sure,
but their ideologies.
Lemillion can have an ideological conflict with what Chisaki wants, what Overhaul.
Because of how much he trained and struggled with his quirk, and he understands the importance of his quirk. And he could succeed without his quirk if it never existed.
Well, to continue on with that, because he's like summarizing some of the things that I've said in the car.
Yeah.
So for the case of Lemillion actually has an innate quirk.
Yes, we know that.
Which is really important, because unlike Deku, whose was given and then could be taken away, Lemillion falls in line with what Chisaki sees as the problem. Deku actually doesn't, because Deku is something artificial. And so that's something that actually Chisaki wouldn't have an issue with. If the Yakuza could give themselves power like Deku did, that would be the plan that Chisaki would have chosen.
Yeah, that would have been the different direction they would have went.
Right. So already there, conceptually, there's the difference between Lemillion and Deku in this role.
Right. Well, there's the one argument that I have on that point. Chisaki doesn't know anything about what happened to Deku. So by all rights, he should not have. He would have the same argument against
on Chisaki's side, but on Deku's side, he doesn't.
But that's not the point. Is that this isn't about the characters. The characters can fight without ever actually saying what their ideas are. We know them. That's the whole point, is that we're going past just watching two people brawl in the street, because what we're seeing here is a really awesome fight. But to us, we have the ideologies of both characters.
But
Deku
my problem is you're inserting. Okay, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Lemillion and Deku are both there for the same reason. They are there to save Eri. That is exactly what both of them want to do.
Sure.
Right.
Chisaki wants to get rid of quirks. Wants to put his Yakuza ahead and get rid of quirks with Eri's power.
Right.
Yeah.
And you find out later that he also wants to distribute a drug that restores quirks that can sell to heroes. Control the market, make millions, Yakuza stuff. My problem here is you're putting a philosophy on Chisaki against Lemillion that by your saying he shouldn't have against Deku, he should have there shouldn't be a issue with that. He should have the same problem with Lemillion that he has with Deku.
Because he's saying that he really didn't care if there was no quirks. He was setting it up as a business for his.
My point basically being is that I think Lemillion losing his powers is the more important one for Lemillion himself, because of how hard he worked to make his what appears to be a useless quirk work, and then still fought afterwards. I think him losing his power is the much more important thing. But on an ideological fight, Deku and Lemillion are on the same point against Chisaki, and Chisaki's on the same point against them, even if they're not aligned. Even if it's not the same thing of what they're fighting, even if they don't realize what they're fighting against is the same thing. Trying to say this correctly, but
Eri is the physical fight.
Yes, they're fighting over Eri.
Sure, which is fine. That's not the problem. I mean, when you're fighting Stain, the fight for Stain is just hold on long enough until the heroes come and save them.
Yep.
Right. So the physical goal for the fight is fine. That's just the way the plot is. That's the way it's driven. So yes, Lemillion, everyone there is fighting to get Eri away from Chisaki.
Right. It's just that Deku and Lemillion are more dedicated to that because they were the ones that
they initially failed. They failed miserably.
Yes, during the first run. So yes, that's fine. That's
which was primarily Lemillion's fault.
Well, it's no.
Well, I don't because Lemillion was telling him basically not to do it.
He was doing the correct thing he was doing the correct thing. He made
in
the
that
correct
situation.
call.
Yeah, in that situation because he didn't know the full situation.
Right. But here's the thing that matters here. It's outside of the physical goal, the fight that's on the ground. We're rising above that to what these people stand for.
Sure.
And Deku and Lemillion don't stand for the same thing.
What do you mean? They're both there for the same reason.
No. See, you're going back to the physical fight.
He's talking about it's not about the girl. He's talking about them as a person
and what they believe.
The reason why they're a hero.
And they are two different things because Deku doesn't have the history Lemillion has. Now, sure, they both want to be heroes, and they both have their ideas about what a hero is, but what they represent, their symbology, is different from the other.
I actually disagree. They're extremely similar, and that's why they're
extremely similar characters.
No, they're extremely similar, and also the problems they had. Both of their quirks can kill them.
Yeah, but Deku didn't grow up.
You're
with
correct. Deku didn't grow up with it, but he.
Okay, so let me just bring it up to you really close about the reason why Deku and Lemillion are different, as well as why Lemillion and Chisaki have something
Lemillion didn't have a choice with his quirk,
and that's the important thing because Chisaki also had no choice in how his world has changed,
and how his
Deku completely did. Deku stepped into the thing that's hurting him.
Yeah, he chose his path.
And the problem is that Eri and Lemillion are on the same boat. Both of their quirks are like curses. They could have killed themselves if their quirk could be used in that way on themselves, or unlike Eri and her father, just completely vamp out someone they care about.
That's not her father.
Is that her? Who was the person she made disappear? Was it not her father?
No, that was her father.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying like her father,
no,
in like her father had the same ability.
So all Lemillion and Chisaki have had a moment where they have a distinctly negative view of quirks. In that, I'm pretty sure, even though it's not directly exposed, that everyone can see the negative in Lemillion's quirk.
Yes.
That, like, if you screw up...
For one, when his ability first worked, he had to be naked.
Well, not only that, but I'm saying that, like, he can keep falling indefinitely.
Yeah, he could have died
easily,
and his dad told him that.
Right,
That's what I told him.
Okay,
that's what I said.
Cool. Yeah. And that unique interaction is unique to Lemillion because Lemillion has no choice in that. Deku...
Because it was his father's ability that passed down to him.
Right. And has played out in this way for his life. In the case of Chisaki, if given the choice like Deku had to enact something like Eri, because this is him trying to get that choice that he never had, to make it so that the Yakuza don't fall out into irrelevancy because of this sudden event that is the rise of quirks. See what I'm saying? Do you see where Lemillion and Chisaki link up? Where
Not necessarily, but I'm just going to let you continue.
Okay, well, it's important that
my issue with it is it feels like they picked Deku to be the victor of the battle, just so that way, just like they did with Naruto, where you'd have these people question if Naruto was supposed to be the next Hokage, and they didn't have faith in him. Well, Deku currently has that person, which is Hawkeye. Hawkeye's in the room and he keeps talking about, oh, you can't change the future, can't change the future. Then you have this shining hero who suddenly can change the future.
That's fine.
And,
I mean,
it feels
it's
like
Goku syndrome.
Yes,
It is Goku
and
syndrome.
I have that. That's the issue I had with the art,
which is fine at all. And fixing
and I loved the show.
and swapping it around in this way does go away to fixing that, but that's not the reason why I want that swap to happen.
I know that's why I wanted it.
So moving on to the next level of this, right? It's about what happens when a quirk is lost, right? So when a quirk is lost for Chisaki sees that as a net positive.
Yeah.
Right? Lemillion, on the other hand, of course, what he's losing is all the blood, sweat, and tears, the years of hard work, his entire life's work is what's lost when that quirk is lost. When Deku would have, if Deku was the person who had, lost his powers, what Deku's losing is a dream.
Yeah.
What Deku's losing is both the responsibility of being All Might's successor as well as what he's always wanted for himself personally. Right? And so
it also would have made him feel like Lemillion should have been the successor. It would have made him doubt himself more.
Yeah, if that was the way that played out.
Yeah.
But the point being is that Lemillion is the character that actually can and did withstand that loss. While it's questionable if Deku does, because Deku's ideas don't motivate him to stand up and keep going. What Deku wants...
That's where I disagree with you.
I think he would have kept fighting.
I absolutely think Deku would have kept fighting.
That's why he tried to save Bakugo all the way at the beginning.
Right. No,
remember one of the first things that All Might says, and the reason that he gives Deku the power is, Deku says, I move without thinking. Most heroes say, I move without thinking. Lemillion does that too. Lemillion has said he's done that too.
Right. No. And that's not what I'm pointing at. What I'm pointing at is continuing on in your role without your powers.
He believes that
Deku doesn't actually have a viable method for continuing to do what he wants without the powers that has been granted to him.
But all of Lemillion's years of training and stuff like that
give him a path to continue forward. Same thing with Chisaki.
He thinks now at this point that Deku could because of all the training he's had.
At
this point,
I still fully believe that Deku would have continued fighting. And
no, it's not about continuing the fight. I'm sure that everyone there would have continued the fight. Night Eye has a giant spike in him, and if he could stand up and keep fighting, he would.
How's he
and
not
Froppy,
dead?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying Uravity and Froppy are completely drained out and continue the fight. Every hero that is a hero would continue the fight. What I'm talking about is continuing the dream after losing your powers.
I think you would.
I don't think Deku has a way forward.
It's not that he doesn't have. I think he'd make a way for it. I think he'd still continue even after losing his powers. I legitimately do.
In what capacity?
I guess
just continue staying at the he still continues staying at the school. He might become a support. He might become a support person.
Yeah, or use all the support tech.
Like he has already proven himself to be just a ridiculously vast knowledge of heroes. I legitimately think he would have found another way to be a hero without powers.
He could make himself a suit.
Iron Man it.
Yeah,
but once again,
to compare him to another character in universe, the main character of the Vigilante series, the My Hero Academia Vigilantes spinoff series. The main character has a really, really weak quirk that really doesn't do a lot, but he still tries to be a hero. With that, in that same ideology, honestly almost more so because he literally wears a suit that looks almost exactly like All Might.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. It's essentially All Might.
In my opinion, it would be the same thing where like this kid is trying to be a hero, even though he's doing it vigilante style and isn't supposed to be doing it.
Okay.
I think Deku would continue on at UA and would continue to work on. I'm pretty sure.
Do you think they would let him stay at
okay,
UA?
but
Yeah,
no,
yes.
it's fine. Even if all that plays out. So I want to just pose a question to you, and I want to see if you think that that's something that Deku can achieve. Do you think that without All Might's quirk, Deku can become the symbol of peace?
I think he would try. I think he would continue the dream. I don't know if he could. You are correct. I don't know if he absolutely could, but I think he would continue to try.
I think he would keep trying. I don't think he would make it.
But
though.
no. But I mean that specific thing. See, because in my opinion, what I think Deku would do is Deku would move to support whoever could take the position next, not that he himself would continue to move forward to achieve that dream.
I believe he would.
I don't think that's within his character.
I think it is. Ever since he was a kid, he wanted to be a hero.
That's not a hero. That's not.
But he didn't act on it.
The symbol of peace is what you need to stick with here for that. To take All Might's position, not to be a hero. I fully believe that. Yeah, sure, Deku would find some way. Even though I don't really consider supporters to be heroes, nevertheless, he would occupy that role and do something heroic.
I believe he would continue to strive towards it. If somebody else takes up the mantle, I think he would give it to them.
I don't think
that makes sense.
He doesn't have it to begin with.
I don't think anybody in that world can become the symbol of peace without their abilities, without their quirk. If they don't have a quirk, I don't think they could become the symbol of peace.
I disagree with that.
With the way the society looks at their heroes, I don't think it.
I mean, that's fine. And that's us disagreeing on ideas, as well as disagreeing on our interpretations of characters.
Yeah.
But to me, and the reason why I felt the way I do, and the reason why I've kind of just, filtered out of the series as it's continued on, and the reason why this conversation is happening today is because I felt that the person who had the best temperament and history to continue to move forward in the face of that particular circumstance is Lemillion. And that's the thing that stands in opposition ideologically to Chisaki, because Lemillion losing his powers still hits this ideological beat despite not being the final fight. That even though Chisaki succeeded in what he wanted to do, his plan and his desire for the future is both being interrupted in two ways. One, that there would still be characters like Lemillion who, without their powers, would still strive against him and still would be the same impediment. And two, that the person who he's doing all of this for and that he had to take out of commission is more ideologically aligned with Lemillion than it is with Chisaki himself. So on both facets of what Chisaki stands for, he's not matching. He doesn't match up with Deku. He matches up ideologically in a competition with Lemillion. By the way,
he's like Sir Night-Eye, where Sir Night-Eye had faith in Lemillion,
right?
Not Deku.
And Night-Eye's prediction makes sense from a logical standpoint. What happens with Deku and Deku completely overriding Night-Eye's vision in the future has a very strong thematic standpoint, and that's really good. And only Deku gets to kind of play that role out, which is also good. And that's perfectly fine in that I imagine that's what the author wanted out of the series.
Right.
Right? To make that point that fate can be changed, that Night-Eye couldn't predict everything 100%.
Right, and that's why he would be proven as the symbol of
peace in the future.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
because he is able to change.
Yes, he's able to change
destiny.
Plus ultra to the unreasonable extreme that allows him to come out on top in this strange and unbelievable situation. And that's also something that you have to recognize, that's the reason why the author chose to go in this way, and that's the reason why the story
he wants the direction, because he's looking at the future of the main character.
Yeah, because he's also trying to convey those themes, which is fine. But I'm specifically just talking about what I wanted out of My Hero Academia and what I got out of it, and where this fight, despite being so amazing and so thematically important, failed me as a fan. Which is fine. No one ever has to agree with that, but I get to do my own little special on this podcast, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
Hey, I thought it was an interesting topic.
Right.
And I enjoyed talking about it.
And that's just what I wanted out of it. So, like, in my alternate universe where I continue on with this and get to see what I wanted to see, I think that's what I want being ideological conflict really strongly could have been put to fruition between Chisaki and Lemillion as opposed to Chisaki and Deku, because they just pass right by each other. You know what I'm saying? What Chisaki wants doesn't matter to Deku, and what Chisaki's doing does matter to Deku, but not what Deku wants. You see what I'm saying? Because, like, as a hero, he obviously doesn't want this to happen. He obviously doesn't want
a hero.
this.
Of course, he doesn't want
this drug to exist, for the Yakuza to come back,
for the daughter, not daughter, but for the girl,
Eri to be used in this way,
to be abused.
Right. So all of those things are things that Deku directly opposes Chisaki on, but there is no greater ideological fight than that. I think that what you're doing is bad. Stop it. Deku doesn't stand for something that Shisaki's trying to remove, as opposed to what happened with Stain, where Deku directly stood for what it is to be a hero.
Right.
And that's why that fight played out the way that it did, both physically, in that we got the fulfillment of the theme there, as well as above the theme, where you see the ideas clash, and one idea or one thought on how a hero should be wins out. And I would love to have seen the Arthur remain as wonderful and as consistent as it was in that moment, as it was in All Might versus One for All, or All for One.
Yes, All for One.
Yeah, and just continue on.
One
with
for All.
that. One for All, is it All for One?
One for all is All Might. All for One is the bad guy.
Yeah. Because all of it's for one.
Yeah. But my brain says be dyslexic and swap those two around as many times as you possibly like. It doesn't help that All Might has all in his name as well. It just makes it horrible. But
it makes my brain hurt.
Yeah. But regardless of the naming scheme, those are the two things that like made this series stand out on top for a time for me. And now as we continue on with the series, I feel like the thematic weight overweighs ideological conflicts that villains and heroes might have. Right? And like I look forward into the future where we're looking at Hands versus Deku, which is obviously, the far ending conflict that is to come. There's no spoiler. Everyone can assume that these two are the new antagonists and protagonists, being, succeeding the conflict.
One is the symbol of peace, one is the symbol of chaos.
Right. And eventually I assume that the ideas that All Might espoused and had already embodied will replace Deku's ideas. Because right now, Deku's ideas are striving towards that. When he reaches it, most likely he'll carry the ideas that All Might had. Because there's a difference there. Deku doesn't actually share All Might's ideology. He has his own, where his is achieving what All Might has, not necessarily...
He's starting to make his own.
Right.
Because you see it in the fight where he says, I want to make sure no one is ever worried about me again.
Well, not only that, but
he don't want to be saved by me.
Right, but not only that, but he's also bringing up the point that what it means to be a hero is being able to save one person. You know what I'm saying? Just this one person. If I can, at the cost of everything that I'm doing, save one person,
then it was worth it all.
Yeah, and that's coming to the idea I know All Might has, which is that symbol of peace. Once again, that doesn't conflict with Chisaki in any way, outside of the thing that they're fighting over is the one person he's trying to save. But Deku's going to reach there, and I know that he is, and that's going to be his actual ideology at the end game. And so when you look at Hands, Little Bad, you come to understand that his ideas haven't been fleshed out yet. Now, of course, in the manga, we've gotten more towards his backstory, more towards what he stands for. But I hope that when we get to the end, their ideas are in direct conflict, just as direct as what Big Bad versus All Might.
Okay.
I can tell you they probably won't be.
And that's probably the reason why I've stopped reading this series. So there it is.
You do your exit.
Yes. Well, I don't particularly have one, but this has been the Depths of Disorder. I've been your host, Dane. These have been my co-hosts, Tim and Alex, and we are so excited to have you here. I hope you enjoyed diving into the depths with me.